Hello class! Today we're going to have a special lesson on DC Universe Classics Wave number 9, the Collect and Connect figure Chemo. And we can see we've got the bits of him down here. There's a couple legs. They're huge. And then here's his, we'll say torso, lower torso, not the crotch. His arms, and of course the Slimer piece up here up top, his torso and I guess head if you want to call it that. Before we get into that, just some other figures from the wave, or the other figures, I guess some is probably more accurate. We've got Deadshot, we've got Black Canary, not anymore. We have the Mantis, which was it Super Friends, or I can't remember. Some kind of, it's the variant based on, I think it was Super Friends or something, I can't remember. At any rate, we have him. He looks like a Ninja Turtle figure. We've got Green Arrow over here, who really, in terms of contributing to Chemo, contributed nothing. Way to go, Ollie. He came with a figure stand. But, you know, he's still a Green Arrow, which I guess made him worth picking up, because he's worth getting on his own. Then we have Wildcat, one of the more excellent figures from the wave. Came with this part here. Ridiculously hard to find. We've got the redheaded stepchild of the wave, Guardian, which I think, at least in Canada, I don't know about the US, but isn't that a chain of drugstores? Guardian? Yeah, that's what you deserve too, bitch. And last but not least, we've got Black Adam. And actually, just even before I get into putting together Chemo, I have to say, actually for the most part, this is a pretty good wave of figures all in all. It has a number of characters that I like, or I at least very least know of. Mostly from Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. My knowledge on DC comics and continuity and stuff is mostly from Justice League and Wikipedia. I never followed the DC stuff when I was a kid, but for some reason I'm obsessed with the figures now. If I had to pick one really good figure, I would have to go with Wildcat. I really like the Wildcat figure, probably the best. But you know, the Green Arrow is pretty good. I like the Deadshot. Even Black Adam here is pretty good with his blue hair on top. I still don't know what the deal is with the blue hair. But at any rate, not too bad. Black Canary is pretty good, even though I have a hard time standing her up. Maybe that's why Green Arrow came with a figure stand. Anyways, and as I said, this one, Guardian, like, honestly, just who cares? I don't know. There must have been somebody who said, you know what, we need another figure. We can't use another remold of Batman or Superman, and someone dug up Guardian and thought that would be a good idea. And his head is really, really loose. I don't know what the deal is with that. But he's kind of boring. Why couldn't he have come with a figure stand? Oh, that's right. Wouldn't have bought him. Okay. So, I think what we're going to do is we're going to do a quick break. I'm going to readjust some of these, and we will start putting together Chemo. Okay. As promised, let's start building Chemo. So we're going to move some of these other bits out of the way. We're going to let these other dudes chill along the wall there. So first we're going to start off the legs, which again, I know I've pointed it out before. Just look at the size of them. Leg is almost as big as Deadshot here. It's crazy, crazy, crazy. So we'll grab the legs. We're going to grab the torso piece here. See if we can just snap these in place. There's one. And we're going to pop in the other one. There we go. I mean, that's going to take up most of my frame right there. So we'll move that out of the way. The upper torso now. When I first got the pieces, I decided to leave the little rubber bands on. So I guess now would be a good time as any to get rid of those. For the hoses, because we're going to have to plug those in. I think the back here, we can see those corresponding holes. So we'll get rid of the little plastic rubber band-ish thing from here as well. Oh, there we go. Alright. And we can stick the arm in the socket. Let's see if is that in? Looks like it. This one's coming together really easily. I've assembled a couple of other of these Build-A-Figures, and I had a lot more problems than I have with this one so far, which is actually kind of a nice change. So there we go. We've got his arms in. We can plug in the hoses in the back. There we go. Oh, maybe that one can go in a little more. Ugh. Then lastly, I'm going to have to adjust my camera up a little bit. We've got the torso, we've got his upper half, and there we have the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, that's gangrenous and scary looking. I'm just kidding. Yeah, we got Chemo. So I'm going to have to adjust my camera here a little bit. May even have to go handheld. But there we have him. And as you can see, we can still see Deadshot right through him, which is actually kind of cool. Give you a quick look. So he is transparent. I guess that's kind of the point. And it's funny because he's got a little bit of heft to him. However, it's all in his legs. His legs are incredibly heavy, but his upper body is hollow. So he does got an impressive amount of weight. As I said, it's all in the legs. So I think what we'll do is we'll do another cut, and then we'll talk more about this figure and maybe a little bit about the history of him. So again, we'll be back in a second. Okay, class, we're back. I think that was going to be our last cut. I promise. We're going to finish our look here at Chemo. So I'll give you another quick view where I can use both hands to move him, and we'll just keep the camera steady this time. Now, I don't really know anything about this character, so I did have to look it up on Wiki, and essentially what it is that there was some doctor who was clever enough to form a humanoid kind of container to pile all of his toxic waste in. There were failed experiments. And eventually he poured in enough of them that they formed some kind of chemical reaction that gave Chemo life, so to speak. And that's what happened to him. And then he fought the Metal Men, he fought Superman, he's fought a few other people. He was dumped on Bloodhaven, which then more or less wiped it out, etc., etc. I mean, I don't know, he's just kind of a big generic dude in that respect to me. I guess he did make an appearance on Justice League. If you watched the one that had Metamorpho, they kind of, I guess, had a version of Chemo as the villain, even though it doesn't look like this much at all. But that's okay. So, let's see. Well, in terms of the coloring, you know what? It's kind of that snot green. It reminds me of the color green that the slime toys, you know, like Ghostbusters, and I think He-Man had the slime pit and that kind of stuff. That's what this color reminds me of. And we've got kind of the bronze colors for his metal bits, and then we got some black for his hoses. In terms of his sculpt, you know what? It's pretty good. His face looks kind of silly to me. It just really does. It just does not inspire terror at all, but I suppose maybe just his sheer size and the fact that he's toxic is supposed to be enough. But his sculpt is pretty good. You can see the little bubbles or what's supposed to be on the inside. That's why I thought it'd be really neat to try and fill it with water or something, just to get that kind of effect. But I wouldn't dare it because it'd make a mess, and then the evil wife would get mad at me, and then I'd probably get hurt, etc., etc. So, yeah, we're going to give up on that idea. But we can see his digits. He's got really tiny hands for such a large critter. We can see all the detail there. It looks like it's plating that's been put together. Same thing with his boots. Whole bunch of metal plates put together. Now, okay, so the doctor poured a whole bunch of toxic byproducts or something into this humanoid container. Why the hell did he build arms and feet for that damn thing? And I think these are supposed to be, or at least look like eyes. Yeah, that can't be a bad idea. Here, I'm going to make a robot, fill it with toxic goo. Nothing bad can happen there. At any rate. Now, in terms of articulation for this figure, you're not going to have a whole lot. I mean, as far as the Collect and Connect figures go, this one is, you know, pretty wildly different from a lot of the other ones. Most of them, you know, you still kind of have the standard build, just bigger or a few differences. So obviously there's nothing in the head. His arms are going to move. But because of the hoses, they can't really go that far. I think we might be able to go almost all the way around this way. Not quite. But we still can go up at the shoulder. The elbow here will bend a little bit. It will rotate, again, a little bit, but the hose will obstruct it eventually. And then we can see his hand can rotate independently as well. His little sissy, sharp scissor hands. His waist, well, he'll go all the way around that way. Which seems, again, kind of silly to me, given that it's supposed to be one large vat of toxic crap. Toxic Avenger would so want to kick this guy's ass. At any rate, his legs go forward that far. He has kind of the lumbering giant look to him. The knee does bend a little bit, but again, not a whole lot. And the foot, it adjusts a little bit. But you know what? I don't think Chemo is supposed to be the kind of character or figure that you're going to have significant action poses for. I mean, it's just a big pile of walking snot. So So I don't think you're going to do too much. Like, really, I think the best way for him to look is just to stand him up there and he'll look all menacing. I still think his head looks a little goofy, but that's okay. Now, the other thing I need to point out is the size comparison. So if we take our dumbass figure here, Guardian, look at that. He barely goes up to the waist, or just a little bit above, sorry. And I think the other point of comparison that we should use, so we need to take probably one of my favorite figures, Kilowog, whom I think I've said before was probably a little too big. And let's face it, this is just an excuse to get Kilowog in another video. Ha! But even when we stand Kilowog beside Chemo, Chemo still dwarfs him. And I think at one point Chemo's supposed to be what, like, starts off what, 20 feet, 25 feet tall and becomes really huge. I don't know. I think he's as big as the story writer needs him to be. But again, I thought Kilowog was large. Chemo is much larger, and that's just kind of scary. So I think, again, one of the reasons to get this figure, when I first saw reviews for it by other people, I wasn't terribly impressed. It doesn't move a lot. I have no attachment to the character, you know, etc., etc. But I have to admit, just the size of it is impressive to me. It's kind of like having Metroplex or Fort Max back from Transformers. Fort Max didn't move a whole lot, but the toy was big enough to kick your ass. I don't think Chemo is quite that large, but it's the same kind of deal, I guess. It's just excessively large, which is kind of cool. Now, again, for being so large, I still don't think he weighs as much as Kilowog. If I really, really wanted to, I'd grab the scale and check that out. But he's still relatively light for the figure of his size. And again, that is because inside there's hollow, kind of like his head. Kind of like my head, if you ask my wife. Anyways, so there we have him. If I was going to grade this figure, oh, you know, that's tough. Oh, I'm gonna kill myself trying to figure this one. I would give it a grade, you know, of B+. It's not my favorite Build-A-Figure. Obviously, right now it's Kilowog. But I do like this figure a fair bit. I think one of the things about it is just the size is impressive. And the fact it does look pretty cool. He's got the bubbles and stuff in there. Not a lot of attachment to the character, and it doesn't move a whole lot. And let's face it, this figure would not be even remotely decent if it wasn't this big. If it was the size of our good friend Deadshot here, you wouldn't give a damn, like, at all. Like, who cares? I think just part of his size is what makes him impressive. It's just a big honking walking pile of pus or something. That was from Day of the Dead. Anyways, so I think that was our review, our lesson on Chemo. Is it worth picking up all the individual figures for? You know what? Yes, it is, because most of the individual figures are worth getting on their own. In this respect, Chemo is just an excellent bonus. So I think that's it for me. Thank you very much, and class is dismissed.